Good evening. My name is Danielle Trejo, and myself, along with my group members, are going to talk about climate change and the effects it has on our planet. Climate change is when temperature rises, which causes dramatic transformation on our planet. The carbon dioxide, methane, and soot and other pollutions we release into the atmosphere act like a blanket, trapping the sun's heat and causing the planet to warm up. In 2014, the National Climate Assessment did a study that showed human influences are the #1 cause of climate change. If we do not care about our environment, we are revoking our children of their human rights to a clean environment with natural resources they need in order to survive. Through research on accredited sources like National Climate Assessment and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Riley, Olivia, Amber, and I are well informed in the subject matter. Today, we are going to talk about how climate change affects the environment, which will be done by Olivia, the social effects, which will be done by Amber, and then how it affects living things on Earth, which will be done by Riley. Now that we have our roadmap in place, let's go on to talk about how it creates environmental concerns around the world.
There are many environmental concerns when it comes to global warming. Most importantly is the weather and the climate. As global warming worsens, the amount of drought and precipitation in the world increases. As the temperatures rise, more of the ocean evaporates into the air, which causes more precipitation. According to a 2015 Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, there are more and more days with precipitation than there ever has been before. Also, with the rising temperatures, there is more and more moisture leaving the ground, which worsens the drought. According to a 2012 National Center for Atmospheric Research study, the global extent of drought has more than doubled since the 1970s. Also, there are some positives when it comes to the weather because the strongest tornadoes and hurricanes have become less frequent. According to a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration study in 2015, they found that in the last 50 years, the strongest tornadoes in the U.S. have become less frequent, while the weakest have become more frequent. So other than the weather, there's also landforms that are affected by the global warming. For example, our polar and mountainous regions. The ice and glaciers are retreating more than they ever have been before. A 2018 study by UCAR found that the ice that covers the Arctic Ocean has been retreating further than it ever has been before, as you can see in this picture that was made in 2017. So all these things add up together and they affect the environment and they also affect humans.
Change has direct physical effects on the Earth. Us humans are also facing severe health impacts and even death. Climate change and air quality have direct impacts on one another. As the atmosphere warms, the United States Protection Agency explains that this increases ground ozone levels. Ground ozone levels cause constriction of the respiratory system, which causes the body to work harder to pump oxygen throughout the rest of the body. This can aggravate previous respiratory conditions like emphysema, asthma, and bronchitis. Low air quality can also cause recurrent infections, especially those of the respiratory system. Death from extreme weather patterns is also an issue. The rising in greenhouse gases is increasing the overall temperature of the Earth as well as the extremes. The body can only withstand short periods of time in extreme temperatures before the cardiovascular system, respiratory system, and kidneys shut down, ultimately leading to complete organ failure. The U.S. Global Exchange Research Project predicts that the number of deaths will continue to increase within the next 100 years. This graph shows increases of both deaths caused by heat and cold deaths all the way up to 2,100. While temperature is causing deaths in humans, it can also cause major issues with the cleanliness and availability of our food and water. Major storms like hurricanes, floods, tornadoes can destroy food sources as well as contaminate them with pollutants. Another study done in Harvard by Samuel Myers shows that increasing amounts of CO2 gas causes decrease in the nutrient value of our food. This does so by decreasing the amount of zinc, iron, and protein. So just as the Earth is a home for humans, it is also an inhabitant of animals as well.
Just as Amber pointed out that climate change has impacts on humans, so too it impacts all living things here on planet Earth. One of the most imminent and evident ways that we can tell is a threat to biodiversity, specifically the decrease in biodiversity. For example, a 2015 study done by Kubayos et al. Shows that, or contributes to the knowledge that we are actually in the middle of a sixth mass extinction. They specifically looked at vertebrates, which compared to this background extinction rate, or the normal extinction rate level. In the past 100 years, they've come to the conclusion that in the past 100 years, the number of species that have become extinct should have taken between 800 and 10,000 years, even by modest estimates. One of the major ways that climate change impacts or causes a decrease in biodiversity is the impact that it has on the habitats in which all living things live. As stated by Bayard in a 2012 study, species may not be able to adapt fast enough in order to accommodate for climate change. And there are a number of reasons for this, so including their current specific requirements, their ability to adapt in the short term and the long term, and the different competition between all of the different species, which leads to their ability to adapt to climate change. And finally, climate change has an effect on the spread of disease, which can lead to a decrease in biodiversity. And spread of disease, which according to a 2012 review, the loss of biodiversity may impact and cause an increase in the disease transmission by increasing the number of animals that play host or vectors to the disease, by changing the behavior of these host vectors or the disease itself, or by changing the condition of the animals that harbor the disease, thereby making them more likely to contract the disease. For example, the review cites a 2009 study in which all other biodiversity was artificially removed, leaving just the host species. And as you can see, there was a dramatic increase in the disease transmission with the removal of all other animals besides the host. And so now that we've seen the impact that it can have on all other living things on planet Earth.
Today we talked about how climate change is affecting the lives of many around the world as death rates continue to rise. Now that we're coming to an end of our presentation, let's quickly wrap this up and go over some of the things we talked about today. First, we talked about some of the environmental concerns and how it is killing off precious ecosystems around the world. Second, we talked about how climate change is affecting the lives of every individual around the world. Last, we talked about how climate change is affecting the lives of living things, such as wildlife. Ultimately, humans are the main cause of this natural phenomenon, and it is up to us to sustain the environment. We can do many little things to stop the increase of temperature on our planet. For example, next time you get in your car to go to work, maybe consider carpooling or maybe even riding a bike. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this presentation brought you a new perspective on climate change.